Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be talking about ViewConf, which happened in March. It's March 18th. And we have some multiple people who attended who are going to talk about some specifics of the conference, and then talk more generally if people have questions about what's going on with Vue today, what's going on with companies using Vue, things like that. I'm Jack. I work at Politico. Quick introduction of the co-organizers who are here. Tracey, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, Tracey. Work here at Bloomberg.
I'm Ben. Work at GitLab.
And now as good a time as any to say thank you to Bloomberg for hosting us.
Okay.
Or do you have a slide?
Yeah, it's later.
All right. We'll say thank you to them later. So we have some announcements. Ben can chime in on a couple of these, but there are ViewConf slides available. We will. Are people here? Have you seen our Discord? That's something where we share links, or people can get help with Vue-related questions. We'll mention that at the end. There's a link to our Discord where we'll post things. You can also find a lot of this in tweets and on the meetup page. But there are Vue conference slides available. Our next Vue DC meetup is going to be May 15th. It'll be at Politico. And what we're likely going to do is another round of lightning talks. Our goal is about 2 or 3 presentations. So that would put at each talk in the 15 to 20 minutes range. So if you have anything that you've worked on, small project, personal project, or at work, maybe something that you've tried out that's worked well that you thought was maybe poorly documented while you were trying to figure out how to do that. If you just started with Vue and have some thoughts on how it's gone, anything at all, come talk to us. You can also email us, reach out to us on the Discord, things like that. Do you want to talk about the conferences coming up, Ben?
Yeah, so there are 3 call for proposals out there. So if you want to speak at the Vue conference, basically we have Vue London and Vue Toronto. Those are out right now. And Connect Tech is the local one in Georgia. They have a specific Vue track. So again, or if you have other talks you want to give, Connect Tech is a great one. They have like, I think 12 tracks. It's insane.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really great conference to go to. But yeah, so those are 3 call for proposals out. If you have questions about CFP and just like not sure where to get started, reach out to us as well. We're happy to help with those things as well.
Thanks, Ben. Vue 3.0 RFCs are out and available. RFC is request for comment. So if you're just getting started with Vue, what we're currently on is 2.6. And the thing that the core team has been working on is Vue 3.0, which from version 2 to version 3, there will be breaking changes. So some of the biggest ones are in requests for comments where you have an opportunity to go chime in if you have any questions or concerns about what the core team is currently proposing. But equally exciting, you can see some of the cool features that will be included with Vue 3.0. You can also find Ben's comments on there, and Ben had lots of upvotes on one of them. Like we said about lightning talks coming up, we're always looking for speakers. So vuejsdc at gmail.com. Just email us with any ideas. We're happy to work with you to build up any initial idea for a talk that you have. Happy to talk through what you think would work or any initial ideas that you have.
Now you can thank me.
Thank you to Bloomberg BNA. Take it away.
Yeah, I just want to say we are hiring, and so actually, if you're interested in coming to work for Bloomberg BNA, despite our crazy security, that's the guy you talk to right there. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay.
So today we have 5 attendees who went to ViewConf. Did anyone who's not one of these 5 people, were you also at ViewConf?
Henry.
Awesome. Cool. So if you have thoughts maybe in the Q&A of things that stood out to you that doesn't get covered here, let us know. So yeah, we'll run through. Some of our speakers have slides prepared. Some just have a topic that they're interested in. Chris Guirreri will be joining us in just a little bit. And then at the end, we'll have our nice fancy panel here for a Q&A with any questions that people have. So I think with that, we can get started with Brad.
Brad. Okay. What kind of,
Brad.
you have it?
I didn't hear anything. All the Bloomberg people. There were some great facts about growth and stuff. So, let's see, 750, 780,000 weekly dev tool downloads. a million weekly NPM downloads. That seemed like a completely crazy stat. That was nothing compared to the fact that apparently it's the second most starred project passing Bootstrap. So that was kind of an insane stat. And I found one of the charts that showed it gets crossed over in December.
Yeah.
So amazing stuff. And then yeah, V2.6 out in February. So that's kind of the stuff that I thought was most interesting. And then 2020 is technically not announced, but seems like it's going to be in New York.
Really?
That's
It seemed like the votes were going towards Nashville.
Really?
I wanted Austin.
I don't know. Finn?
I heard it was Paris.
There was a Twitter poll out. So yeah, I think Nashville and New York City and Austin, I think, were the three big hubs.
Yeah.
That they were thinking. Keep an eye out for 2020.
And then the videos are coming soon up at the Mastery website, and there's like a ton from last year as well.
Yeah.
So that was something that I also hadn't seen at a bunch of conferences. So I spent the first workshop day doing a deep dive into Vue, led by Evan Yu himself. So this is what it says when you go on the website to sign up for workshops, and you go to pick your workshop, and this is what it said was the description for this. And I got closed out of the one last year, so I felt like this fear of missing out. Like, I gotta take it this time. Now I know enough to, really. I felt like I needed to take it. And if you read this description, you're like, okay, sure. And I thought it might be like a nice dive into, pleasant waters. And that's not what it was. It was more like this. So it's a deep dive. It was like an intense 8 hours, but I did talk to a couple different people, and we all agreed that one of the most amazing things was watching Evan do like real-time JavaScript coding in front of a live audience where he's like 3 steps ahead of not only the audience, but of where he wants the code to be. And so where, like mere mortals would write it, refactor it, and get to someplace, he like gets there as he's typing. And you're like, and so that was amazing to watch him do that kind of stuff in real time. There were a whole bunch of topics that he covered. A lot of them are really all about how Vue is implemented, with this idea that it gives you an interesting idea of what your Vue program is doing under the covers, and gets kind of a much more in-depth feeling of knowing what the system is doing as you write software against it. All that to be said, there were a lot of exercises, a lot of stuff, and it's not the most practical of the workshops to take. So if you're getting a choice next year, and you're like, your boss is like, come back with something we can use next year, this is not the one. If, on the other hand, you like really want to understand how things work, and you're one of those people who wants to like take it apart and then be able to put it back together again, yeah, do that. It was definitely uneven. We spent a lot of time in the beginning sections on things like reactivity and doing actual exercises of implementing small parts based on requirements that he gave, and that was great, except for the part where eventually we got to the point where we're like, I can do this. But the solutions were up there, and he walked through all of those. That was definitely educational. Actually, spending more time on some of the later topics where we ran through more quickly was probably, for me, some of the more interesting stuff. So, all right, here's the summary of everything about reactivity that I think you've got to know. And the best parts about this, the way he was talking about it, is it's declarative. It's relationships. You're telling the framework, these are the pieces that when this thing over here changes, make this thing over here dance. Make it do something to react to that. And that's what a lot of the heart of this is, keeping 2 or more values in sync. So there's this dependency tracking that goes on underneath, and there's lots of different ways you could do it. And that's where he really started stepping us through okay, well, you can do it this way, and this is how we first do it, but that's really not very good. And then you can do it this way, and then it goes into object.define property in JavaScript, and it's like, okay, I'm sure that's an API, and I'm sure if I could Google that, I could find, all of the details on that, but it's not like in my head. But that's the kind of stuff that's actually in there. And once you understand that, then you're like, oh, I get it. It basically has setters and getters, and every time something happens, the setter says, thing changed, or the getter says, here's the thing that reacts to a change. And then he said, but here's the better leg. And now that there's ES6, there's this thing called proxies, and they are pretty much like their name implies, except not from the networking side, where they sit in between the real object and the view framework, and they intercept every time you change the data or you look at the data, and it passes it through, where it also does a little sideways thing that says, hey, react to this. And the whole reactive system just works, and it works blindingly fast, and so that's kind of cool stuff. He went and talked a lot about templates in terms of how the templating code turns into JavaScript through the thing called a render function, which, how many people here have written render functions? And there's like, out of the 50, 60 of us, a few people are like, yes, I've done it. It's like, oh, you got to do that. So there was a whole bunch of stuff that heads down that way. There's this nice little part of the Vue website that I hadn't seen before called template-explorer.vuejs.org. So if you care about render functions, if you care about how that whole set of HTML with the templating turns into actual JavaScript underneath and then hooks into the DOM, go there and you can put in things like a div and watch it turn into the actual functions. And that was really nice and particularly interesting and useful. He talked about the virtual DOM that frameworks like Vue and React and so forth create based on a plain old JavaScript object, so it's cheap, it's fast, versus the actual DOM where it generates code to then manipulate that, which is expensive and slower, so you try not to do that very much. So then we got into things like diffing algorithms and patching algorithms and re-rendering, and we did lab exercises that went through all of those, which, again, insanely deep and insanely cool, and probably learned a little bit more about patching and diffing than I had really thought I would know coming out of this. But I'm not sure I'm using that next week. There was a quick section on Vuex and state management and how all of that is basically built on top of the reactivity system. And what it does to facilitate cross-component reactivity, cross-component state. And once you know the initial two things, then Vuex suddenly looks really much easier than it really is. So that was helpful. And then he hit what I thought was the most interesting stuff for all of this, which was these different patterns for composition and code reuse. And I think this overlaps with one of the other workshops and with some of the stuff he did in his 1-hour presentation, his keynote. Basically, he started off from plain old JavaScript inheritance and said, yeah, nice for logic, but lousy for UI. And then he moved on to mix-ins and said, here's the oldest pattern, here's how it works. Still works just fine, but here's the downsides, which mostly is name clashing and scaling up. So here, let's show you plugins. Basically, functions with Vue as an argument, and it works for Vuex, it works for Vue Router, but it's not really a pattern that scales for a lot of other stuff. So then he moved into these other ones, higher order components, components that wrap other components, and the outer component returns the inner one. It's cool. It's not a pattern that I can describe by hand waving to you, but if you have the articles, or if you have Evan there describing it for 20 minutes, it actually is a pretty practical pattern. And then he moved and went and said, hey, let's take that even another level, and said, let's take these weird things called scope slots, let's take renderless components, and mix them all together, and take this higher order component approach even another step further with pieces that either already render when they need to, or ones that use scope slots and become these lazy rendered components that don't actually do anything until you need them to, and are much more optimized. And so then there's this whole set of pieces built on the parameters that prevented the namespace clashing. It was definitely a fascinating set of patterns. And then he ended with a Vue 3 replacement for mix-in called hooks, which extract out the logic and manually create a reactive object when needed for the piece that's being observed. And so basically, it's that same way that mix-ins work now, where they plug in a little functionality into the bigger component, but it's a cleaner approach that'll be coming in Vue 3 and may or may not ever be seen backward. And then, well, I lost that. I also was fortunate enough, I put in a pitch the week before when they opened it up for a lightning talk, so I got to spend 7.5 minutes on stage in front of, like, you know, the audience of thousands and the lights in your eyes, and so you can't actually see anybody. This is, even with the lights, I can actually, like, tell there's people out here. But that one, there was, you know, billions of blobs floating in the light. And it was fun to get to actually share kind of our experience for Bloomberg. It's my DC office and our counterparts up in New York, the rest of my team that's up in the New York office, and how we kind of had incrementally adopted Vue, and then were able to give some big, quick wins to our users by really finding some good Vue components that were out there that satisfied the exact need. So that was a fun chance to get to do 7 minutes. It was a little bit hairy because I didn't have any idea for sure until, you know, a couple of days before that I was going to get selected for the talk, and didn't know until like the day of what day I was doing it. But so that was a ton of fun. So that's the stuff that I saw, and I'm happy to take questions up when we all get up here.
Okay. Thanks, Brett. Now we have Tracey.
All right, so I just picked out 3. So actually, I took that guy over there as workshop. So there's 3 things that I just thought were really cool that I hadn't really realized you can do. And so I just think they're really helpful. So I just wanted to point them out. So the one that's actually the most useful is to use the v-bind when passing props. So on the left, this is what we always had to do. And actually, we do this higher order component pattern. And so in the higher order component, we're passing in all these props into the child. And you see we just use the shorthand. But this is kind of crazy because, you know, articles, channels. Well, it turns out if you use this v-bind, then you can just pass in article, channels, whatever. As long as it's the same word, you can just pass it all in. And if, for example, for heroes -count, you can actually make it heroes counts, kind of like more JavaScripty like you're used to. So I thought that was really useful, and I started using it immediately. So that's really useful. And then the next one I found is this destructuring for multiple arguments. I've used this once, but I also like it because this basically means on the left is how I would usually write it, on the right, and of course I stole this directly from your slide. And on the right is how you can do it with destructure. And the gist of it means, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, is basically you don't have to pass every argument in, and you don't have to worry about the order. That's the benefit of it. So that's actually a really cool one I learned. And Ben's workshop was actually called, what was it called? Reusable? Right. So it's a lot of going through how what are good ways to make components that are reusable, what are some good patterns, and just ways to kind of make it, I guess, more maintainable too, right? So, and the last one was the functional components, and this is really cool. So this actually has been available if you use render function for a while, but it just became available in Vue 2.5, and I had no idea. Vue 2.5 has been out for a while, and only at this conference did I realize that we could use it. So it's basically for stateless components, and basically there's no reactive data, as also there's no method. I'm assuming there's no computed either, right? So Yeah, exactly. So, and basically, the benefit of this is there's no overhead of the views reactivity system. That's why you would want to do it. And this is just a kind of an example of it, but there's docs on it. Just if you Google the docs, you'll find it. And it's actually really powerful. I think, and actually somebody gave another talk about how to speed up your app, and this is one of the suggestions. And so I think, I was looking at our components, and I think we could probably turn maybe 50% into functional. I think that's right, Ron, something like that. So I don't know how much more performance it's going to give us, but even if it only gives us 15% more performance, that's 15% more performance, right? That's always a good thing. So those are just the 3 things I wanted to point out that I learned from Ben's workshop. So that's it.
All right, thanks, Tracey.
Okay, so.
All right, let's get all the panelists up to Q&A. You want to bring up the site for ViewCon? So.
Yeah, once I figure out how to rework my laptop.
Name, Jack.
So yeah, let's start off with some introductions. We'll go down the line, starting with Brad. If you can do just name, job title, and place of work, and I guess just start with the favorite thing you took away from
Or what
conference.
you did at the conference.
What you did at the conference.
All right. So, Brad Balfour, a software developer over at Bloomberg BNA though, and so favorite part of there was probably 50% of the talks was something practical that I actually jotted down. It was like, we could change this in our app and make it, and that was like the best.
Cool. I'm Andrew Krawchyk. I spoke my first conference talk ever at ViewCon, so that was a lot of fun. And nerve-wracking. I'm not super comfortable on stage, so I'm the opposite of Brad. I like that the lights were in my face. And I didn't see anyone, and it was actually. But I see a few friendly faces. So what's up, guys? And my favorite part was just getting through the first talk. And after that, it was like nice to relax and kind of take the. Like that. I met Evan, but kind of embarrassed myself, so I was like, so that was really fun.
Hi, I'm Christian Guirreri. Most of you know me. Politico. What was it? Favorite thing?
Yeah, favorite thing.
Well, I did Chris Fritz's workshop. It's funny because I had already heard exactly what he goes over, but I still learned new things. It was really well done, and he always does a talk. Usually on day 1, but I think it was day 2 this year, and that was all even more information. It was kind of cool though. At the workshop, you get to see like stuff that he's going to talk about. So like I knew about it ahead of everybody else. Anyway, it was fun. Yeah. I think Fritz gave me. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Tracey Holinka, I'm a web application architect here at Bloomberg BNA. So I think just about every talk I learned something. I actually learned a lot. So yeah, so actually, yeah, it was pretty cool. And but I also learned a lot from Chris Fritz's workshop from my colleagues that went to it. So that was really cool. Yeah, so I just the coolest thing was to immediately said, oh my God, we could do all this stuff, right? So I immediately wanted to leave and just refactor everything, but it's not possible. So.
Yeah. So I'm Ben Hong, senior front-end engineer at GitLab. So my role at the conference, I helped to co-teach a workshop, as Tracey mentioned, with Damien, who uses Vue Multi-Select. Some of you might be using that in your applications. And then I also emceed the conference for both days. So while he got to relax the rest of the conference, I had to emcee the conference with Jen Looper. So I think my favorite part was, oh gosh,
Dad jokes.
It was a long 3
Worst
days.
dad
So.
jokes.
Oh my God.
Most awkward.
Wait.
Oh gosh, no, I'm not doing that here.
Yeah.
But
Can you find the tweet?
Yeah, can you find the tweet?
Can we play?
Successfully emceeing.
The one.
Yeah,
Are they
can
singing?
you find that tweet?
I'll look for it.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, so anyways, so what should we call it? If you have questions about workshops or the talks, we put up the talks up here. But workshop-wise, we can quickly, is it down here? Yeah, basically there was Evan's, as Brad mentioned, Chris Fritz's on patterns that Chris took. There was mine for ridiculous components. I can probably speak for the Vue Vixens and the intro for Adam Jar and Greg Pollock. Can't speak for Vuex, but other than that, so if you have questions about the workshops, feel free to ask, or the talks, or just about the conference in general. So, does anyone have any questions they want to? You have a question.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
What made you decide to go do this, become the speakers, and how did that all go down?
So actually, it was very random. kind of just decided to do it. I was scrolling through Twitter on like November-ish, and I saw someone tweeted out that UConf still needs speakers, and I said, why not? The worst they can say is no. And it had extended the deadline, so that made me think that maybe they like didn't have enough people, or that they didn't have the right kind of talks, and so that kind of gave me a little bit more hope. And the hard part for me was figuring out what to talk about, because like as an engineer, sometimes you do it and you're like, well, everybody can do that. I already did it. If I can do it, everyone can. And so like getting out of that state of mind, you can relate to that at all? Yeah, like getting out of the state of mind is kind of hard, and I just thought about the past year or two I've been working at Optoro and figured out what I could talk about. So it was a good transition story from like the old Angular back to like newer and Vue, and just kind of packaged that up and got my CTO to help me out with it, and worked out. I got lucky. The conference organizer said I got super lucky because it was fit the niche for like they wanted some real world experience.
I wouldn't call that lucky. You just
Yeah,
good talk, man. You did a great job.
But at the same time, it was lucky just to land the spot for like a nice conference like that. So
You said it was the first conference you did?
that size, I mean, I've done meetups before, but nothing like the auditorium. It was pretty large. Yeah.
Well, remember too that he was able to actually talk here the month before.
Right.
So that's always a good opportunity if you guys have talk and you want to like do it someplace. You have this place as a chance to try.
And I noticed you changed your talk based on that.
Yeah, I had
Some of
a
it-
lot of topics, and,
Yes.
and that helped like kind of pare it down and figure out what was good, what people like caught on to at the meetup and stuff like that. So that was a good dry run.
Were you petrified up there?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I had a lot of preparation, and I just kind of psyched myself up for it. Like it's it's not going to matter in 10 minutes if I screw it up. I'm just going to get through it and get on the next thing. So.
Because I mean, there was a packed auditorium. It was full.
Yeah, there was another lightning talk. Charles Villard, I think. He,
Oh, yeah.
It was his first one as well, and so I went up to him
was
afterwards.
so
and was like,
nervous.
"Congrats, man! I know what it's like to be your first talk up there." So.
It was hard around.
Yeah,
Everybody knew
Yeah.
that.
yeah, and it was good to like have that like
The first talk at that, like 1,000 people or whatever. That's crazy.
yeah.
But like Andrew, no one came up and like heckled you, right? And said,
Well, the Wi-Fi went out in the first 5
Yeah.
minutes, right?
that's true.
Yeah.
But that happened to
Yeah,
Evan's talk.
it did happen.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
did.
that happened to Evan you. So
one
shit
tip
happens
for
at a conference.
Yeah, bring a hotspot. I just turn on my phone's hotspot. It worked out well.
Oh, yeah, you did. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
that was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I always try to.
basically, like demonstrate that you were completely able to improv the whole thing.
Right.
Well, I saw Evan do it, and I was like, I gotta figure that out.
Yeah, I always try to remind like first time speakers that a lot of times you get up here and you think that like people are out to like get you, like correct you if you're wrong and that kind of thing. Honestly, especially at conferences, the audience wants you to succeed. They're not looking for you to fail. So don't psych yourself out in that regard. They want you to succeed because they came to learn and stuff, and they want to hear your story. So if that's one of those things that terrifies you about speaking, know that the audience is actually rooting for you. Honestly.
One tip about Wi-Fi, it's always like something I always do for my presentations is I'll always have like an animated GIF of the thing that I want to show at this part, and so just in case like everything's failing or the code is breaking, like I at least have that animated GIF to like say, oh well, here's what I'm
It's a loading indicator.
A lot of you'll see a lot of the really pro presenters like that's all they have. Like they
Yeah, I noticed that. Actually, the
Yeah.
mastery guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely have that. They swap in GIFs and no one even knows.
Yeah,
Like, they look like they pretend like they're typing,
Right.
and they've done it plenty of times.
Yeah, it's not
you
sped up
just
or anything.
don't know.
Just well
Yeah.
edited.
Yeah. They do really good job.
Yeah.
And it made it useful because then I could go grab that
Yeah.
and show that during the summary that I did for the New York folks. And so much easier that way.
So have you given talks before in front of a group of that large? Even if it's a 7-minute talk, it's still
Yeah.
1,000 people.
I used to do talks for like 10 years at different size conferences, different training, consulting, that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Pretty comfortable there.
What about you, Ben? MCing in that costume.
Oh yeah. So as far as they're referring to, I wore it was Jen Looper's idea, and we wore unicorn onesies for most of the conference.
I was going to show this picture yet.
So
I
can you,
would've-
yeah, what's
Yeah, you can pull up. I think it's on the.
Okay, can I
Yeah,
pull?
never mind.
Yeah, you-
So-
I'm